First difference from the Tomahawk you'll have to manage is the constant speed prop. These props use a governor to maintain a set RPM by changing the byte the prop is taking. In the Comanche, the governor creates work for fine pitch, while naturally goes to a coarse pitch. This means that in an engine-out situation, the prop will go to a low drag state. At idle power, the governor valve lets in high-pressure oil into the governor piston, forcing the prop towards fine pitch. As we increase power, this extra torque increases RPM. At some point, the max RPM is reached, and any extra power added will start coursing the propeller. When pulling on the prop control lever, we add tension to a spring that's pushing on the flywheel weights of the governor, consequently changing the centrifugal force required to reach the null position. The effect: a lower equilibrium RPM. As the engine is rotating slower, it is pulling in less air from the manifold, thus an increase in MP is usually witnessed. That is why, if moving towards lower RPM, the throttle needs adjustment first, to not stress the engine with high MP. A good example is when transitioning to the climb after takeoff. In that case, you have to decrease RPM to 2,424 inches on the MP. If you first move the prop lever, the MP will increase to more stressful levels than the already conducted takeoff. As you can see in this case, we've decreased engine power. But at 22.6 inches MP, the engine is outputting about 195 horsepower, so it should be able to maintain max RPM. What is happening? In 0 TAS, that 12 degrees of pitch means 12 degrees angle of attack of the blade, and that generates huge drag. As the aircraft picks up speed, angle of attack decreases so the engine can sustain that max 2,575 revolutions per minute. For example, at rotation speed and max power, the blade angle of attack is around 3 degrees. Constant speed propellers are made to mitigate an old problem of aviation: cruise versus takeoff. Takeoff requires highest power at low forward speed. This is obtained at low blade pitch angles that allow the engine to reach max power RPM, and also keep the blade angle of attack below stall. Cruise, on the other hand, requires fuel efficiency at high speed and low noise. First requirement is obtained at the maximum ratio between lift and drag for the blade at the respective cruise speed. This means a high blade pitch, as all that forward speed decreases angle of attack quite a lot. A usual blade angle of attack for the Comanche in cruise would be 5 degrees for 25 degrees pitch. A note has to be made on washout. Propellers twist differently from root to tip because of different translation speeds of the radial points. For example, at 2,575 revolutions per minute, the midpoint of the prop is traveling at 250 knots while the tip is zooming at 500 knots. The second system you will need to manage from now on is the retractable landing gear. The Comanche is a high-performance aircraft, capable of cruising at 160 to 180 miles per hour, and can carry twice the payload of the Tomahawk. It wouldn't have reached twice the range with a draggy landing gear underneath. But that helpful retractable landing gear also adds more workload for the pilot and a new failure that should be managed. First and foremost, you should not forget to raise or lower it when the situation requires it. There is a gear light that hints you to the current state of the landing gear. Second, there are more V-speeds to memorize. With the landing gear out, you cannot exceed 150 miles per hour indicated. Also, to operate the gear retracting or deploying, you should be below 125 miles per hour indicated. As expected, the landing gear adds a lot of drag. The normal system is fully electric. If that fails, there is the mechanical linkage to drop the gear on gravity alone. Because at high speeds the aerodynamic forces generated can interfere with the gravitational fall, you should use the system at or below 110 miles per hour. If permissible, a pitch-up moment can be added to aid gravity. As opposed to the Tomahawk's 0235, which was leaned by ear alone, the complexity of the 0540 coupled with a constant speed prop means that it's best to use a more precise leaning method. The Engine Data Management 830 uses JPIs to get various data from inside the engine and helps the pilot save engine lifetime. Besides showing alerts for hot cylinders and shock cooling warnings, the EDM 830 has a software routine for leaning the 0540 rich of peak. Rich of peak assures sufficient fuel flow for maximum power in the respective throttle and RPM setting, but also satisfactory cooling of the cylinders using that cool fuel. To start the leaning process, you need to first lean the mixture until one of the cylinders reaches maximum exhaust gas temperature, EGT. The EGT value can be read on the top number, above each cylinder on the EDM display. At that point, push the mixture lever in until that EGT drops by about 50 Fahrenheit. You can now start the leaning routine by pressing the LF button, Lean Find. I chose cylinder 1 for the pre-lean, so I'm watching those temperatures. As I press the LF button, the EDM switched to ROP mode, rich of peak. I am now pulling the mixture lever back to increase temperatures inside the cylinders at around 5 Fahrenheit per second. The EDM will detect all the small tendencies of the temperatures inside every cylinder and figure out which is the leanest cylinder. The U will use the temperature inside the cylinder to lean the engine. The leanest cylinder is the one getting the least amount of fuel, so leaning on this one assures the rest have more than adequate fuel flow. In this case, it was the second cylinder. Now the EDM display shows the temperature difference from the moment it found that leanest cylinder. You now add mixture until a 40 to 50 Fahrenheit decrease in temperature is achieved. There we go. You can also lean of peak. For that, after the leanest cylinder is found, you keep pulling on the mixture until you get to the temperature increase you want. Be careful, leaning LOP can shut down the engine, so you should stay alert for signs of roughness while slowly pulling the mixture. One last point on leaning before ever starting a lean procedure: have the engine set into cruise for your planned cruise setting. In this case, I had the Comanche set for a cruise at 6,500 feet, at 65% power cruise, 2,100 revolutions per minute and 18 inches manifold pressure.
Thank you all for watching.